Hello, my name is Douglas Bloch. I'm an author and mental health educator. Welcome to your Depression Recovery channel, where each week we talk about practical tools and coping strategies for healing from depression and anxiety. The title of today's video is Remembering Bruce, the Life of an Extraordinary Cat. Before we begin, I want to tell our joke. I recently saw a headline in the paper that read, Energizer Bunny arrested, charged with battery. I thought that was cute. All right, well, as I said, the purpose of making this video was to remember a cat, pay tribute to a cat who brought a tremendous amount of joy to myself, to Joan, and to many other people who he touched. His name was Bruce. He was a pure Himalayan cat, white Persian. And this is meant to be a tribute to Bruce, who died 6 months ago on September 10th, 2021. And there are many people in my YouTube channel I've been talking to this about. A lot of you have waited for this video. So here it is, and I really hope you enjoy it. Those of you who have been following me for a number of years are already aware of Bruce and his amazing life. And one of the things I learned from this ministry I have about helping myself and others heal from depression is the role of pets, the role they play in helping people with mood disorders, the support role they play, and oftentimes they can be more supportive and more helpful than even other people. And that's what Bruce was. So he was a tremendous benefit to myself, to Joan, and our moods, and also to the moods of the people who attended our support groups and watched. So I'd like to share with you first how Joan and I met Bruce. It was a beautiful summer's day here in Portland, Oregon, on our front porch, and suddenly, out of nowhere, this white Persian cat comes to the porch, lies on his back, clearly enjoying the sunshine, and Joan says, "Who are you and where did you come from?" And we both thought Bruce was quite cute, but it was sort of a mystery. He just sort of appeared out of nowhere. A few days later, we were talking with a couple who had moved in next door, and they explained to us that Bruce was their cat and that he had actually been born in Portland, Maine, all the way on the other side of the country, and they had moved here and brought Bruce with them. You know, they were quite fond of Bruce and didn't want to leave him there. So he comes to Portland, Oregon, ends up right next to our house, and a week later, he started to spend time at our house. In fact, more time at where we were than where they lived. And they explained to us that when they were living in Portland, Maine, they lived in a house with a lot of cats and other animals, and Bruce was used to being around other furry friends, and they had no pets, but we had 2 cats and 2 parakeets. So Bruce, felt, hey, this is where I want to be. This is what's familiar, There's no place like home. Well, 2 years later, it turned out that Jim and Kathy were unexpectedly called back to Portland, Maine. They had to move across the country. And Joan and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice if Bruce could stay with us? I mean, he's already kind of made his home here, and we've grown quite attached to him. So Joan went up to Jimmy next door and said, hey, look, I wonder if it would be okay if Bruce stayed with us when you moved back to the East Coast. She wasn't sure what kind of answer she'd get, but she was pleasantly surprised when he said, yeah, I was thinking of that too, because we're going back to this apartment. We're going to be working 40 hours a week. There's going to be nobody around, and Bruce is going to feel very lonely. And he's obviously made his home at your place, so I think it would be better if he stayed here with you. About 20 years ago, Joan and I started to facilitate healing from depression support groups in our home. The purpose of this was to create a community similar to the one that had healed me 5 years earlier from a really bad depressive episode. We wanted to duplicate that, create community in our home where people could come in and share their stories and support each other in their healing. Well, one day, shortly after Bruce moved here, there was an empty seat, and he came into the room, spotting the empty seat. He jumped on it and faced the middle of the group and stared right at everybody else and just sort of went into a meditative pose. People remarked afterwards that they really found this a calming presence, and Bruce must have picked up on this, because from then on, at the beginning of every group, we had a seat for him, and sure enough, like perfect timing, he would come in and jump on the seat and observe. I don't know if he was taking notes, but he was definitely became part of the group identity. Now, Bruce was an indoor-outdoor cat. I know a lot of people keep their cats indoors, but I say, look, cats are animals, right? They're made to go, be outside, fresh air, pretend they're hunting. And oftentimes at the beginning of the group, and sure enough, Bruce was outside, right? But moments or sometimes, 10 minutes after the group start, he would come to the front door and go, meow, meow, wanting in, as if he somehow tuned in that the group was meeting. And we had different groups on different nights, but it didn't matter. He was always there wanting to get in at the right time, and sure enough, we'd let him in. He'd go, walk, hop onto his chair, and observe the group for the rest of the evening, with one exception. Every now and then, he'd jump off the chair, lie on his back with his paws up in the air, and invite someone to scratch his belly. And that's exactly what people would do, different people, different times, but he simply really enjoyed that experience. Another ritual we had in the group, or closing ritual we had in the group, is at the end of every meeting, we would join hands like they do in AA, and we'd say the serenity prayer, right? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, and people would stand up holding hands in the circle. One time, Bruce jumped onto the coffee table, which was, people were standing around, and he went ahead and rotated himself 360 degrees, making eye contact with each person as we said the serenity prayer. I found this was remarkable, like he was trying to connect with each individual. And this happened on more than one occasion. So we all concluded that Bruce really had become part of the family, part of the group, and people really commented that one of the things they looked forward to was not just the processing, not just the support of each other, but Bruce's presence. Now I'd like to share with you some of Bruce's personal characteristics. Well, the first thing I'll say is he's a testimony to the saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. With his flat face and snaggletooth, he would look like, quite frankly, something the cat dragged in. And I remember the first day my niece walked in and saw him, she exclaimed, "That is the ugliest cat I've ever seen." And a case can be made for that. On the other hand, a lot of people, especially women, especially people in our neighborhood who got to know Bruce, thought he was just adorable, that little face, and fell in love with it, and treated him like a mother would treat a child. I guess that face kind of draws sympathy from people. Now, one thing that Bruce was problematic about Bruce is that he was high maintenance, and I'll tell you why. Ever since I've had cats since the age of 9, I'm now 73, was that 64 years, they've been short-haired domestic. But Bruce was long hair, Persian, a very special cat. And the long hair had a big disadvantage. It got matted. No matter how much we tried to groom him, no matter how much we tried to care for him, the mats got tangled. And according to our vet, these are very, very painful to the cats, who are very good at hiding their pain. So what was the only option left? Why, to get a lion cut, of course. And one of my neighbors called it Bruce's stylish haircut. During the entire time that Bruce lived with us, which was a little over 7 years, he was quite healthy and quite active. Sometimes not coming home till 3 in the morning. "Bruce, come in, it's time for bedtime." And Joan was a trooper. She'd stay up, until he came in. Didn't want him to spend out the night outside by himself. But around the age of 13, he started to have health problems, and he became what my vet called geriatric. This is the time when many, many cats start to go downhill and have their own health problems, and Bruce was no exception. He started to not eat as much. He would, actually, no, that's not true. Bruce never stopped eating. He started to lose weight, even though he was eating, like crazy, but he would come home looking haggard. Looked like he'd gotten into something. He just didn't look well. So I made an appointment with the vet, but it was COVID time. We couldn't get in for 6 weeks. Finally, the day of the appointment came, and right before we were about to leave, Bruce lay on his back, and instead of saying, "Hey, pet me," he had a grand mal seizure. It was one of those frightening things I've ever seen. Fortunately, Joan wasn't present, but my good friend Thelonious was, and he said to me, "I think your cat is dying." So we canceled the appointment, drove right down to Dove Lewis Veterinary Hospital, which was the only hospital at the time that was seeing animals for emergency. God bless them. We came in, we went right to the front of the line because it was a life-threatening situation, and we then were met by a wonderful, wonderful veterinarian who took Bruce back. And about 15 minutes later, he actually called us from the room and said, "Well, I have sad news for you. I felt around Bruce's stomach, he had a big lump. I think it's cancer. He also has heart arrhythmia, and I don't think his kidneys are functioning well. If it was just one thing, maybe we could try to do an operation or fix him. But with three things, I really think, you got to really think what's best for Bruce. Why don't you sleep on it? Well, it was obvious to us that Bruce was dying in his final days, and we didn't want to see him in any more pain. So the next morning we woke up and we said, yeah, I think it's okay to, to quote unquote put Bruce to sleep. And they said, well, come down, because he not only had, overnight he had 2 more grand mal seizures and he went blind. So this was the key, that the cat was ready to make his transition. So we went down to the vet, went into their beautiful, beautiful room where they do mourning and rituals for cats, and then the vet came in to perform euthanasia. And I'd like to play for you now a video of Joan holding Bruce and comforting him and letting him know what a beautiful being he is.
Joy, joy, joy into our lives. You've helped so many people. You're just a beautiful little being, and we thank you as we bless you. And we surround you with light and love as you make your transition, okay?
So on September 10th, 2021, Bruce made his transition. Now, September 10th had been a meaningful day to me for another reason, a more joyful reason. That was the year, that was a date in 1983 that I moved to Portland, September 10th, and then reconnect with Joan, and my life really began at that point. But here we are 18 years later, he's making his transition, very sad. So I announced it to the YouTube folks, you guys, on live chat, and someone said, oh, I guess you'll see him again at the Rainbow Bridge. Never heard of that term. Well, it was explained to me that the Rainbow Bridge is a place where owners go and meet up with their pets who are waiting for them after the owners die, and they're at last reunited. Well, I'm not quite sure if I believe that, but the thought of reconnecting with Bruce brings me and Joan quite a bit of comfort. So maybe there is a Rainbow Bridge, maybe we'll be seeing him, but we are still seeing him in our mind's eye and remembering what a wonderful cat he was. Since Bruce's death, Joan and I have been grieving his loss. Now, I know some of you out there have lost pets. It's always a difficult time for everyone, and no exception for us. I mean, when we came home from the vet that evening, Joan burst into tears, said, Bruce brought so much structure to my life. I mean, every night we had this ritual. I'd feed him, let him out, wait for him to come in. And the weeks after, we were constantly waiting for Bruce to meow at the door at night, realizing finally he wasn't going to be coming in. And his dish was there empty, his food dish, which he just loved to chow down on. And we left that for a while, and we realized he wasn't going to be eating or drinking. So finally we put those away. And, it's been 6 months, and the pain's gotten less. And to honor Bruce, to honor what he brought not just to our lives, the lives of the group, the psyching club, everybody he touched, we purchased from Dove Lewis Hospital a dove, which was placed on a beautiful tree. There are actually 3 of them in the counseling room. Bruce's dove was placed on one of them. And this is what the dove, the inscription on the dove reads. It says, "To our beloved cat Bruce, thanks for bringing love and joy into our lives. Joan and Douglas." As Joan and I have lived with cats ever since we've come together, it's only a matter of time before we find a new cat, or in the case of Bruce, the cat finds us. And when that happens, I'm sure we will bond deeply to the cat and love him or her dearly. But no matter how much we adore our new feline friend, Bruce will always have a special place in our hearts. It truly was a privilege to live with him and be with him and share our ups and downs with him. As my friend Zandy said, he was a being of light and an evolved spirit. This has been Douglas Bloch. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a special tribute to Bruce. I hope you fans out there in live chat who have seen the other videos of Bruce, or just the fans in general, will appreciate this. If you'd like to make a comment or leave a comment, please do so. I always read them and answer them. If you would like to email me, you can do so at douglasblog@gmail.com. If you want to become a subscriber to this channel, if you're not already one, just click on the subscribe button or click on my photo during the closing credits. You'll be taken to the subscribe page. And if you click on the bell, you'll be notified every time I do a new live video or a regular video. And If you want to support this channel, you can simply click on the Patreon link and you'll be taken to my crowdfunding site. Until we meet again, I wish you the best in your mental health recovery. Thank you so much for watching.